G'day, and welcome to the start of the Spider in a Basket Bracelet with Jenny Brandis. It is a transition from the cloth stitch start and the Roseground that I have been asked to demonstrate. The cloth stitch portion will be hidden inside the clasp. For the passives, I am using a Superior Threads in the King Tut line. It is 28 wraps per centimetre. The contrast thread for the cloth stitch start and the footsides is a Gutermann hand quilting cotton with 28 wraps per centimetre. The colour number is 6934. I have all the passives hung in and it is time to add the contrast pairs. Starting with this pin, we hang in 3 pairs. 2 pairs become the right footside passives and the third will be one of the footside weavers. The second footside weaver is the cloth stitch weaver pair. On the left, the 2 pairs from this pin become the 2 footside weavers. This pair is the cloth stitch weaver pair and the 2 pairs from here are the footside passives. I will hang these 8 pairs on and get back to you shortly. Right, I am now at the end of the cloth stitch portion and about to set up the right footside. Cross stitch through the last pairs. The 2 right pairs are the footside weavers from now on. Add a twist to the left pair and 2 twists to the right pair, tension and put up the pin. Pin the right pair off to the side while we set up the footside passives. The next 2 pairs are going to be the passives, but we need to bring them over and into the footside. To do that, I'm going to cross stitch the left passive pair through the right and pin both up inside the footside line on an unmarked pin. Tension and cross stitch the inner weaver pair through both passive pairs, tension and add a twist to the weavers. Move the footside pairs aside while you work the next bit. The next 2 pairs of passives coming out of the cross stitch will be worked next. Put up a pin between these 2 pairs. You may need to lift the cross stitch to find the pinholes. Close the pin with hole stitch. Cross, twist, cross, twist. Repeat that with the next 2 pairs of passives. Put up the pin between the pairs. Close the pin with hole stitch. Repeat that with the next 2 pairs of passives. Put up the pin between the pairs. Close the pin with hole stitch. And repeat that again. Before I go any further across, I am going to deviate and work this pin here in half stitch, pin, half stitch. Next, I work the hole stitch on the right to set up the Roseground, and then the hole stitch on the left. Continue towards the left, bringing in the passives, working the half stitch ground and hole stitch Roseground setup. Now we're at the left-hand corner, where the last set of passives are to be worked before the footside comes into play. Lay the 4 contrast pairs aside for the moment and work the last 2 passive pairs as before. Lay the right pair aside. Bring down the 4 contrast pairs while we set up the footside. 2 pairs from here will be the footside weaver pairs. These 2 left pairs are the passives from here. To start the footside, cross stitch the left pair of weavers through the passives, then cross stitch the right weaver pair through the passives before working the standard straight footside at the top pin. Using the inner footside weaver pair, cross stitch through the passives before adding a twist to the weavers. Work the footside joining pin in hole stitch, pin, hole stitch to ensure that the contrast pairs stay within the footside. Work the hole stitch to set up the leftmost Roseground, then do the footside, cloth stitch the footside passives, then work the straight footside edge before working back through the passives to the next footside joining pin. Add a twist and lay aside. We have done that entire passive and Roseground setup row, so now we can either do this left portion or the right portion. I am going to do this left cluster of Roseground. Move the footside pair outside for the moment. Bring down the 2 sets of prepared incoming sets for the first Roseground. Make sure that the hole stitches are still present before we do the centre of the Roseground in half stitch, pin, half stitch at each of the 4 pins. Finish the Roseground by working both sets of outgoing pairs in hole stitch. Next do the foot side before working the next row of Roseground. Move to the right and repeat the Roseground cluster and foot side. Now you are all set up to start on the trail and spider feature. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe to see more videos like this one.